Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily News. I'm Nicholas Richardson. The European Commission has identified Poland as a country that exceeds the maximum 3% of GDP budget deficit limit. It has announced the launch of a procedure to force budget savings. This usually means reducing social benefits and stopping state-backed investments. Apart from Warsaw, 6 other European capitals have this problem. Edyta Hołdyńska is following the case.
Komisja Europejska uruchomiła wobec Polski.
The European Commission has launched the excess budget deficit procedure against Poland. Why? Because we have exceeded the permissible limit of the budget deficit, which is 3% of GDP. This means that we will have to present a savings plan. What are the procedures in this matter, and where will the Polish state find such savings? I'm checking.
Dzisiaj sprawdzam.
The Commission has identified 12 member states with deficits that exceed 3% of GDP. We have analyzed the reasons of the situation and concluded that the deficit criteria is not fulfilled in 7 member states: Belgium, France, Italy, Hungary, Malta, Slovakia and Poland.
This means that the Polish government must start saving money. The European Commission gave the green light for the excessive deficit procedure for Poland. Poland was among the countries whose budget deficit exceeded 3% of GDP. Poland is exceeding the deficit level of 3% due to our huge defence investments.
Potężnych nakładów na obronę.
The report presented today is only the first step in the process of opening the excessive deficit procedure. After considering the opinion of the Economic and Financial Committee, the European Commission intends to recommend to the European Union Council that the procedure be opened in July. Speaking in the same, Donald Tusk said he would not be played by Brussels, but in fact he has been played by his friend. History has come full circle. 14 years ago, when Tusk was Prime Minister, the European Commission also came up with the excessive deficit procedure against Poland. In fact, the government underestimated expenses for last year, so it had to spend more this year, which resulted in an increase in the budget hole. The government justified that the current budget hole results from Poland's large but necessary defence spending. The main problem is the state income. We have too little revenue for the state budget. There is a VAT hole. We should have an average of 28 billion zloty a month by the end of the year, but we have 22 billion. We have a rising minimum wage, we have rising energy costs, which causes companies to flee the country or reduce their activities, which in turn limits the state income. But where will the government start looking for savings now? Of course, you can wonder where to cut it and who to take it from, and it's usually taken from those who don't burn tyres. The poorest people are most likely to suffer, and the government will certainly have to solve the problem. If a member state does not comply with the recommendations, the Council may decide to proceed to the next stage of the excessive deficit procedure, with the final option being the imposition of financial sanctions on Poland. The deficits are mainly a legacy of the COVID pandemic and the energy price crisis that followed Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. France is in the spotlight because it is the European Union's second largest economy and faces political turmoil after President Emmanuel Macron calls snap national elections for June the 30th to July the 7th in response to his party's poor results in the European parliamentary elections. France had a budget deficit of 5.5% of gross domestic product in 2023, which is expected to narrow only slightly to 5.3% this year, still well above the EU deficit limit of 3% of GDP. French public deficit was 110.6% of GDP in 2023, and the Commission expects it to increase to 112.4% this year and 113.8% in 2025. This is almost twice the EU limit of 60%.
Today's report is the first step in the process of opening an EDP. It will be for the Council in July to adopt a decision establishing the existence of an excessive deficit in those member states, and the EDP recommendation on the correction of the excessive deficit will be proposed only in November or in autumn to ensure consistency with the adjustment path set out in the medium-term plans that, meanwhile, we will be discussing.
Talks between Paris and the Commission on how quickly to reduce France's deficit and debt will take place in the coming months after the European Union executive proposes to Paris a 7-year path to put the deficit on a downward path. The Constitutional Tribunal found the amendments to the Act on the National Centre for Research and Development to be unconstitutional. The Sejm voted on this legal act while the Presidium of the Sejm did not recognise the parliamentary mandates of Mariusz Kamiński and Maciej Wąsik. What did the tribunal consider as a basis for delegalising the act? The decision will trigger a political avalanche in Poland, because what if all the laws adopted since January, including the budget law, were adopted unconstitutionally? This is an unprecedented situation. The amendment to the Act on the NCBIR was adopted in violation of the Constitution, the Constitutional Tribunal ruled. The Act of January the 26, 2024, amending the Act on the NCBIR and the Act on Higher Education and Science, Journal of Laws, Item 227, is inconsistent with Article 7 in connection with Article 4, Section 2, in connection with Article 104, Section 1, in connection with Article 96, Section 1 of the Constitution of the Republic of Poland. Specifically, this concerns illegally preventing MPs Mariusz Kamiński and Maciej Wąsik from voting in the Sejm. The Constitutional Tribunal strongly emphasises that during the proceedings of the Sejm, Mariusz Kamiński and Maciej Wąsik were MPs and were entitled to all the rights of performing the functions of MPs. Thus, the Tribunal shared the President's doubts regarding the legality of adopting laws without the participation of the two Law and Justice MPs. At the end of January, Andrzej Duda announced that he would subsequently refer all laws adopted by the Sejm in this mode to the Constitutional Tribunal. Today we dealt with the resolution on the first case of this type. Among others, the budget bill is still waiting in the queue. The question is also, what about the budget? We need to check it. Well, if it turns out that there is no budget in Poland, it will have huge consequences for the state's finances, and the President should actually consider whether a parliament that does not adopt the budget should function. The ruling group points out that the vote result would have been the same even if Mariusz Kamiński and Maciej Wąsik had been allowed to participate in the parliamentary work. This narrative was refuted by the tribunal. However, the unconstitutionality of the Act under review is not due to the fact that it was adopted without the participation of all 460 deputies, but due to the fact that the two deputies, as a result of arbitrary actions by the Marshal of the Sejm, which are not regulated in the legal order in force in the Republic of Poland, were not allowed to proceed, in particular to participate in the same vote, by deactivating the cards and not allowing them to enter the same building. At the end of December last year, the Speaker of the Sejm, Szymon Hołownia, signed a decision to terminate the parliamentary mandates of Mariusz Kamiński and Maciej Wąsik as a result of their conviction by the District Court in Warsaw for their actions when they managed the work of the Central Anti-Corruption Bureau. President Andrzej Duda pointed out that both politicians had been effectively pardoned by him in this case in 2015. For me, since 2015, since I assumed the Act of Pardon confirmed as its compliance with the Constitution by the Constitutional Tribunal and the Supreme Court in Warsaw, the gentlemen have always been pardoned and covered by the law of pardon, with all the normal consequences of this. Despite all that, the MPs were placed in prison until they were pardoned again by the President. The Chamber of Extraordinary Control of the Supreme Court confirmed the illegal deprivation of the mandate of Maciej Wąsik and Mariusz Kamiński. A few days later, the opposite decision in the case of them was made by the Chamber of Labour, which, according to many experts, was not competent to consider this case. Interestingly, recently the fact of Maciej Wąsik's parliamentary service was indirectly confirmed by the Marshal of the Sejm, Szymon Hołownia. I have just received a letter from Szymon Hołownia in which he informs me that in connection with the election to the European Parliament, I must submit a declaration of resignation from my mandate as a member of the Sejm within 14 days from the announcement of the election results by the National Electoral Commission. I'll keep it. He provides evidence for himself. The Constitutional Tribunal has been under attack for years by the political circles currently in power in Poland. Today, Paweł Ślis, a representative of the Sejm from Trzecie Droga, showed disregard for this constitutional body. My presence would further legitimise something which I fundamentally disagree as a representative of the Sejm, as an MP, but also as a citizen. As a Member of Parliament, I vowed to honestly and conscientiously fulfil my duties towards the nation and abide by the Constitution. Therefore, I am leaving the chamber. What do you want to show? Disrespect to the tribunal? You disregard, sir. You are an MP. With respect, we take you very seriously, and please stay and listen to the rest of the session. I don't see such a need. Thank you. Goodbye. If viewers are watching us, this is how MPs behave, who violate their parliamentary oath. The Constitutional Tribunal decided to impose a fine of 3,000 zloty on MP Ślis. An incident. This is the term used by the Polish and German governments to describe the ferrying of a family of illegal immigrants from Germany to Poland by the German police. Prime Minister Donald Tusk assures us that he talked on this subject with Chancellor Olaf Scholz on the sidelines of the EU summit, but the head of the German government's press office only talks about an exchange of views. According to experts and columnists in international policy, the Polish Prime Minister is not treated seriously. This is evidenced by the practically zero reaction of the Polish government to the dangerous situation on the Polish-German border. Trivialising a serious situation and viciously attacking the opposition. This is how Prime Minister Donald Tusk talks about the incident involving the German police and illegal immigrants. I talked to Chancellor Scholz about the German incident so he can calm down the peace trolls. I intervened, talked to Chancellor Scholz, and he committed to quickly clarify this matter. He speaks about German services bringing a family of 5 illegal immigrants to Poland and leaving them without any control. The head of the Federal Press Office, citing the German government spokesman, speaks only of an exchange of views, not an intervention. On the sidelines of the informal summit of the 17th of June in Brussels, Chancellor Scholz and Prime Minister Tusk exchanged views on the incident on the Polish-German border. The fact that he was talking to Mr. Olaf Scholz somewhere behind the scenes could only have been an exchange of hugs. Tusk's disregard for the matter or lack of respect among Western leaders. This also shows how the Polish government and Donald Tusk are treated today by the German authorities, and it is certainly not treated seriously. Donald Tusk is a subordinate official, say publicists. This man knows that taking any stance against the Germans will be perceived badly. This is Donald Tusk. This is a man who, in short, would sell Poland in every detail at every moment, and all Poles who think differently from him. The procedure for returning illegal immigrants is not the same as the Germans did when they were transferred to Poland. The German side should report in writing to the head of the Polish Office for Foreigners that it wants to transfer the Afghans to our country and wait for consent. So, shouldn't the government react more decisively? Madam MP, why didn't you call the German ambassador in connection with the German services dropping off illegal immigrants to Poland? I will not answer, Mr. Reporter, because the questions are tendentious. In cases where there was at least carelessness, but above all a violation of the regulations, we use appropriate reactions. If the situation were reversed, I'm convinced that Donald Tusk would have been summoned to the carpet by his superiors in the European People's Party a long time ago. So where is the family of illegal immigrants brought to Poland? It is unknown. Meanwhile, more and more of them are breaking into the country. The Lubis police foiled an attempt to illegally cross the border by citizens from Yemen, Syria and Afghanistan. The men wanted to escape the policemen and abandoned the car and hid in a pond. They were all detained. We do not know whether this is not actually happening on our borders because somehow these migrants, illegal immigrants, end up in Poland. Lack of response from the Polish government, subordination to other countries and the growing number of foreigners on our streets. This is what Poland looks like under Donald Tusk's rule. Some 9,000 troops from 20 NATO countries have been participating this month in military exercises in the Baltic Sea region, which has become strategically sensitive following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Sweden, which had joined the drills in the past, took part in the Baltops exercises for the first time in June as a full NATO member, after joining the Transatlantic Military Alliance early this year. The weeks of training include sea minesweeps, submarine detection and amphibious landings. The exercises by Navy, Air Force and ground troops are being held on the Baltic Sea as well as in Sweden and its strategic island of Gotland and in Lithuania, Poland and Germany. They will run through Thursday and include some 50 naval ships and 45 aircraft and helicopters. At the weekend, 150 United States Marines from the 24th Marine Expeditionary Unit practiced an amphibious landing on a beach in Poland before joining up with troops from Spain, Romania and Poland.
I would say the most important thing for this exercise is the interoperability across all NATO allies, across the multinational spectrum, I would say, in complex amphibious operations. Building that interoperability for future contingencies is the most important thing that Baltops gets after every year since 1972.
The exercises are organised by NATO's Naval Strike and Support Forces and the United States 6th Fleet. Major gas pipelines run across the Baltic seabed from Russia and Norway to Germany, Poland and other European nations. Security concerns have increased in the region since Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022 and increased its hostile activity in the Baltic Sea area. That's the news. Thank you for watching, and from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.